Steven Crowder. You remember Megyn Kelly? She was on Fox, and then she got hired by
right?
NBC.
Moderate, right?
The moderate, yeah.
Yeah.
She got hired by NBC. I think she was
Sorry.
Wasn't she on MSNBC too at one point? Or I don't know. She was on NBC, maybe.
Yeah, there was some weird pivot.
She tried. Oh, I love this. She tried to be a daytime talk show host.
Oh, yeah.
And she tried to exude warmth.
Right. Then she tried to do mornings. Yeah, something like that.
That's what in the mornings, you're supposed to be peppy and fun and relatable.
And now she's just kind of forgotten, right?
Yeah, well.
Forget about that. And here she is on the Megyn Kelly show on SiriusXM, where she talks to luminaries and, other such figures. Here she is talking to Cold Feet Steven Crowder.
Right now, we're looking at children on puberty blockers, right? We're looking at men beating the hell out of women in biological men beating the hell out of women in their own sports. What is next? And I think that's a very important question. It's not a logical fallacy to say a slippery slope. We are on a slope, period. If the left has their way on this,
I think it's a fascinating question.
Where do we go?
Because I've talked to a lot of gay and lesbian friends who have said, like, I don't totally get why the T is at the end of LGBT, and the Q and all. Right. Like, the interests aren't necessarily aligned. And in fact, if you look at like the trans activists, like the crazy trans, and not like normal, like whatever, but the crazy trans activists are so vicious, and they're basically kind of doing conversion therapy on young gay men. Instead of, you're not gay, you're trans, you're secretly a girl. It's better to be trans than to be queer, than to be gay. Just say that you're a girl, and then you can get rid of that whole gay thing. And we're seeing more and more of this. Abigail Shrier writes about it in her book. I've had lots of people on the show talking about it. So there is a question about whether the interests of the gay community are aligned in the way that GLAAD would have us believe, and whether GLAAD's lost the real scope of its original mission.
Well, luckily we have Megyn Kelly to tell us what GLAAD's mission should be.
Who better than Megyn Kelly and Steven Crowder?
Yes, Steven Crowder, who's well known for protecting the interests of the gay community. It is, it's fascinating that the idea of trans athletes. What did they find in Kansas? That there was one 12-year-old?
There was one, or at least maybe we're mixing things up. But in Utah, the reason that the governor vetoed that bill, but then they overrode his veto, was because there were 4 trans athletes in the whole state and only 1 trans girl competing. 1.
Yes. And I think it was in Kansas that they found there was just one 12-year-old, trans athlete. I mean, it is amazing how it is completely, they have been able to make it the only thing that matters in their world, regardless. And also to talk about the slippery slope, like what's the next step in this slippery slope, aside from like the idea that there is some type of industry that is converting gay people into trans people, which is absurd. But I'm curious as to what is the slippery slope that people are concerned about? That
men and women will no longer mean anything, that there's the feminization of men, and that it's going to affect our national security, because look at China. I mean, that's what Tucker Carlson's been on about. But like, I don't want to let her off the hook, even not saying that you are, but I just want to hammer home how crazy what she just said was. She said that gay people are presiding over conversion therapy, like what
trans people are.
Trans people for gay people, trying to rope them into their lifestyle. I mean, that is the panic that they try to imbue in all of this, is that your kid's going to be like them too, because they're recruiting. You have a gay kid, you might be more accepting of that kid than you were 20 years ago or 10 years ago when I was on Fox News and saying why that was wrong. And now I've decided I have gay friends who are undoubtedly TERFs who hate trans people and think J.K. Rowling's writings about this make a ton of sense. Like, that gives me credibility in this space. that is bonkers. That is nuts, and that is just not anything close to what's happening. But
and to think, this is the woman that we relied on for all of the insight into the fact that Santa Claus was white.
Yeah.
Well, that's one thing I'm curious about, like her mythological creature analysis is, what does she mean when she says, not like those normal trans people, but the super vicious trans activists? Like there's a bunch of suicides of people being bullied by trans activists. It's not a real thing at all. It reminds me of like super predators or something like that. You're trying to create this image in people's head that, oh yeah, people just won't let me be a man because you got gangs of trans people trying to get you on the road to transition. It's ridiculous.
It's also hilarious, the idea that anyone associated with the conservative movement in this country would try and project that they are in some way on a mission, even as twisted as the way that she's laying it out, in protecting gay rights and gay lifestyle.
Yeah.
I saw this tweet. I for the life of me, I can't find out who tweeted it, but it was a speech that George P. Bush gave. This is Jeb's son. This is the one who threw his dad under the bus to appease Donald Trump, and is now polling it around 8% in this Texas AG race. But he had this to say, which is fascinating. A state like Texas has the right to protect itself. So whether it's the issue of life, whether it's the issue of marriage, Texans should decide its own future. I know what he's talking about when he talks about the issue of life. That is, we should be able to kill whoever we want. The state should be able to kill whoever we want. And we should also be able to imprison women or doctors who attempt to maintain autonomy over their own bodies. But what's he talking about with marriage? He is talking about, and this is where they're going next, he's talking about states having the right to deny gay people the right to marry.
Yep.
Do not kid yourselves, folks. This is on the docket. This is definitely on the docket.
They see, and Megyn Kelly is aiding by dividing the trans community from the larger LGBTQ community there, because they're using the trans issue or people's anxiety and lack of understanding about who trans people are, and they're using that as an opportunity to open further conversations about how the Supreme Court should maybe address gay marriage. They think that it's a more sympathetic audience when people get caught up in the semantics of whether or not this particular swim meet is fair. They use that as a way to launder their anti-trans bigotry, and through that, it's anti-gay bigotry. They're all groomers, and they maybe deserve to be second-class citizens because they're going to try to convert your children.
Yeah.
Yep.
Also, I'm probably not the person to speak on it, but maybe we should get a guess. There are historical reasons why the T is rather important to the LGBT struggle, and I think Megyn Kelly could try to educate herself before just wondering blithely why.
But like her cocktail friend, gay friends, don't necessarily see that. I mean, like, that is what this is. She's a wealthy person with a bunch of other wealthy people, might know a gay person or two, and they're not connected with like the larger activist struggle. And she's using that as an example.
Murray the Orc. It's actually got my blood boiling listening to Kelly and Crowder, two people who are potentially the absolute worst their genders have to offer, discuss whether or not us trans people belong to the community that we created. Every right that the LGBTQ community has is a result of action by trans women. This is why queer history needs to be taught in school.
Yep.
Nicole from Buffalo says the history of transgender and queer people are historically and materially aligned with anyone who tries to convince us otherwise, trying to employ a divide and conquer strategy. Any cisgender, gay, or bisexual person who tries to obfuscate that reality is conceding to the people who undoubtedly throw them aside when they're no longer useful as a wedge against transgender people. Of course. Of course.